Didn't work. And he's escaped, and he's burrowed his way up to the surface. There is a giant monster standing in Trafalgar Square. Now, what I did with this bit is something that I think lots of writers do. It's sort of a trick that they all use to try and suck you into the story and make you really feel like you're there. What you do, and this is a tip you can try for yourselves, is you imagine the scene from the point of view of someone who's there. You know, what can they see? What can they smell or taste? What are they feeling? Imagine it from their point of view, and hopefully that will come across to the reader. I was also asking myself a particular question. You know, a lot of writers get asked this thing about where do you get your ideas from. I think, you know, if you're a writer, it's your job to have ideas, and you make the ideas come by asking yourself questions. And the question I was asking myself in this bit was about giant monsters. I was thinking, you know, why do they scream? Whenever you see them in films, you know, from King Kong all the way up to Cloverfield, whenever you see the giant monsters, they're always going, ah! Why do they do that? Have they got toothache? Have they maybe stubbed their ickle claws on the buildings and it's very painful for them? Is it, why do they do that? So this is my take on it. This is why, well, this is why I think giant monsters scream. Or it might be why they scream. I'll tell you what, I'll just shut up now and just read some of it. Okay, everybody ready?
Yep.
Here we go. For a long time, Tim just stood there, experiencing an emotion he had never felt before. The tiny people far below him were staring up at him in terror, aghast at the simple size of him. Tim, as it happened, was feeling something similar. All his life he had lived in a box. To Tim, the box had become something akin to the warmth and security and enclosedness that he still dimly remembered from his egg. But now, as if he'd hatched again, he was free. He was out in the open, outside in the world for the very first time. The night sky gaped around him, impossibly, immeasurably vast. He looked up at it, looked everywhere, searching for where the walls were, but he couldn't find them. Tim felt the London night air on his reptilian skin and saw the horizon and how far away it was, even for him. There was a swelling sensation inside his chest. His tail began to thrash the air and his claws opened and closed on nothing, helplessly. For a wild second, he wanted to climb back underground again, back to his enclosure, but there was no going back, only this huge, cold emptiness that seemed to expand around him the further he looked. For the first time in his life, Tim, huge as he was, felt small. He felt exposed and alone and horribly, horribly scared. It was scary, he decided. The whole situation was scary. Alone, helpless, he opened his mouth and he screamed. It was an astonishing sound. It was louder than aeroplanes taking off. It was as if the hole Tim had come out of was a great mouth in the earth and the whole planet was bellowing in terror. Some who heard it just collapsed on the spot, their legs turned into jelly underneath them. Some turned tail and fled and were tens of metres away before they even realised they were running, crying and screaming themselves as the hideous sound continued on and on. Tim screamed. The people far below him screamed. For a long moment they stayed like that, a stalemate of fright, and that was when the first helicopters arrived. That's kind of my cliffhanger point there. You were super quiet listening to me for that. I really appreciate it. Would you like me to carry on?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Carrying on? Okay. The airwaves crackled with radio transmissions. Dear God, look at the size of that thing. What the hell is... Cut the chatter, Eagle 2. Control, this is Eagle Leader. Target sighted, permission to engage. Can't leave a thing like that running around the centre of London, for Christ's sake. I say we drop him where he stands. I'm with you, Eagle 6. Eagle 4, Eagle 3, cover me. I'm going in. Negative, Bartley Leader. Wait for orders. Do not repeat. Do not engage until we're authorised to target lock. Fire! Fire! Fire at will! Zoosh! A volley of missiles split the night sky with their trails. The squadron of attack choppers peeled outwards as their missiles found their target and detonated to flashes and thunder. Tim staggered. The missiles had struck him on his side, in his ribs. For a moment, the combined weight of the impacts and the explosions threatened to knock him off balance. But he wasn't wounded. Mostly, he was just surprised. When the onslaught finally paused, Tim turned to face the direction the attack had come from. 6 rattling, clattering objects were hovering around him, all keeping a cautious distance. Zoosh! More missiles flew at him. Boom! Their explosions flowered briefly, then vanished. But Tim was ready that time. Experimentally, He swiped at the nearest one with his right forepaw, oblivious to evasive, evasive, the screams and panic that it caused in the cockpits. The rattling thing he tried to grab just danced back in the air out of his reach, and the rest of them, zoosh, foom, foom, just shot at him again with more of their irritating weapons. More rattling things were coming to join them. Tim could hear them coming from all around. Well, Tim thought, there was no other choice. He had to try to get away from them. He had to move. Almost swatting a couple of them just by accident with the resulting swing of his tail, Tim turned and set off. He leaned forward, trying to get himself up to the loping trot that was his top speed. For a moment, Tim felt almost like he should have been enjoying himself. Because of his fast growth, this was the first chance he'd had to really flex his muscles and move in more than a year. But he was constricted. The streets were too narrow, too full of things. His giant hips barely fit between the buildings. The outer walls of Whitehall offices buckled and shattered as he passed. With each step, cars were squashed flat. Street lamps were knocked to the ground. Windows and concrete shivered into powder at the slightest touch of his thrashing tail. And still the clattering things kept shooting their irritating little missiles into Tim's back. With rising annoyance, Tim did his best to walk faster. As ever, he had no clear idea of where he was going or what he was doing. But the shape of the street was forcing him in one direction. The Houses of Parliament. You were super quiet listening. Thank you very much indeed. I brought, oh, this is a good thing. I have brought some business cards with me today. They only have half my head on. I figured if I put my whole head, it might put off potential buyers of my books. You know, so, I can sign the backs of the business cards. These have my my website homepage on. And if anybody wants to ask me a question or get in touch with me, you can ask me questions on my website. There's timdefenderoftheearth.com and theblacktattoo.com. And I'm also on various, you know, social networking names, you know, MySpace, Facebook, Flickr, Last.fm, library thing, YouTube, Twitter, all of that stuff. So if anybody wants to get in touch with me that way, you're more than welcome. But otherwise, thank you very much indeed for listening to me. I've really enjoyed it.